Good evening, everybody, and welcome to this week's edition of FaceOff. After missing a week, Ryan Ravel, am back alongside Derek McCauley and Kyle Solinder.
Thank God.
Boys, I apologize I missed last week. I was scouting the Flyers to give more input on the show.
Oh,
I did it for you guys.
Yeah,
just
we
so you
made
know.
fun of you. It's okay.
Yeah, I know. It's all right. But we're going to get right into this, and we're going to talk about the injury-plagued season that was in the NFL. Just so many injuries on Sunday, and we're going to start with you here, Kyle. Which injury would you say was the most devastating for their team?
I'm going a little outside the box here. I think a lot of people aren't going to think this is as significant as it is, but I'm going with Sam Bradford and the St. Louis Rams because by the numbers, Sam Bradford is really having what you could call a breakout year. He's actually playing way better than he has any other year he's been in the NFL. And now this just stops that progress, and now you waste the rest of the season where he really could be emerging into something the Rams could build with. So I think that loss of Sam Bradford doesn't hurt the Rams so much because they're not going anywhere this season. But it hurts Sam Bradford because he was really just having such a great year.
You hope he comes back from it and can continue. Because I think he's very underrated.
He is.
It's interesting you say that. Sam Bradford was pretty high on my list of somebody that I was going to pick along with Jermichael Finley, who I really hope feels better. But I'm going to have to go with Arian Foster. I think Arian Foster is one of the big, easy picks for this. It's just because this Texans team has already underperformed in a lot of people's estimation the entire season thus far. And to lose your star running back at this point, you're already 2-4. Going into Sunday, they weren't doing that great. And honestly, I believe if he doesn't come back, I think this is a season-ending injury for that team.
I mean, I think Houston's pretty much out of it as it is. They're just not showing up.
But that was like the nail in the coffin.
Well, that's the big one. But for me, I'm going to go with a team who actually had, I think, a legit playoff chance this year. And they still could, but it just dwindled a lot. And that's going to be just the Chicago Bears in general, losing Jay Cutler for 4 to 6 weeks.
Yeah.
And Briggs, I think, for the season.
I think there's an option in there right now. It's like 6 to whatever.
So with Urlacher gone, you lose your main veteran linebacker and your starting quarterback. And I'm not going to say Jay Cutler is, Peyton Manning, but he's been having a pretty solid year.
He's doing
if you
good.
Look at the numbers.
He did
he's a
last
top 10
year,
quarterback.
too.
So I think that's the one that hurts them the most, especially in the division where you got Green Bay winning game after game now. I think that's just going to put them down the ladder now.
There's just no option at backup there. They're not one of those teams that has depth at quarterback.
Like the Eagles, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
We'll talk about that later.
They're all the way. They could use
like
a
Nick
receiver.
Foles, yeah. How was he?
Nick Foles.
We'll get to that later.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that later. But we're going to move on
Eating
here. We're going to
crow.
talk about the Jets upsetting the New England Patriots this week. We're going to start with you, Derek. What did you think of that win for Geno Smith in New York?
I think it was impressive. I think it was a cohesive team effort that came through. I mean, nobody, again, to not put the Jets on too much of a high level or anything. It's not like anybody thinks the Jets are going to beat the Patriots in many situations. Granted, this is a stripped-down Patriots team. They had Gronkowski back. So, I mean, they don't have as many excuses. Tom Brady had a very bad game. I mean, we're talking about a guy, he went 22 for 46, 228 yards, no touchdowns at all passed, and he threw a pick. So, I mean, I think they capitalized. It was mainly the defense. Geno Smith, I talked up on the last episode. I'm not going to make him out to be like he was the stud. He definitely made them win. But he did have 2 touchdowns, 1 passing and 1 rushing. He did throw a pick, though.
Yeah. I'm not giving it to Geno Smith.
I'm not.
I'm gonna.
It was a defensive, full-team effort.
Will I give anything to Geno Smith? I'm just not a fan.
Hey, you gave him the D.
But, you give a penalty like the Patriots did on the game-winning field goal. It's the first call that it's ever had. They just implemented it this season.
I honestly didn't know that was a rule.
I didn't understand. It took
it.
me like 10 minutes to figure out where the unnecessary roughness
Yeah, I
was.
wasn't.
So I don't even give this win so much to the Jets as I do just the Patriots shot themselves in the foot.
For me, I kind of agree with you on that a little bit, but I'm really not that surprised. I thought this would be a lot closer than a lot of people thought because the thing is, although the Patriots were I think 5-1, 5-2 coming into this game, like 5-1 I think. Okay, Brady's my fantasy quarterback. I'll tell you right now, he's not even a top 20 quarterback right now. Tom Brady,
he does not look like
he's
Tom
got
Brady.
his rookie receivers, and it's not helping him.
He's blown up.
But the team itself, minus that big last-second win against the Saints, this is not your typical Patriots team. So I didn't think, this is going to be a huge upset if the Jets finally knock off New England. I honestly thought they had a legit chance. Now, was I a little surprised? In the end, yeah, because I really don't think the Jets are as good as they're looking out to be. But with that win,
They've got a strong defense.
That's the thing. They
And
got a
that's what
strong
won it.
defense. And you can say that the penalty on the field goal cost them whatever. Like, in the end, they still got the Patriots to overtime. They got the job done. I wasn't that surprised, honestly.
He was, and that's what it really gets marked up to in my mind. It's Tom Brady not being Tom Brady. He hasn't
really
been
what it is.
himself this season, and this isn't the Patriots team that we're used to seeing. They're not used to being that come-from-behind win team. They're usually dominating and holding people down.
Yeah. All right, well, we're going to go to our midseason awards now. And we're going to start with you on this, Kyle. I want you to, actually, we'll go in order here. We'll start with rookie. Who's your rookie of the year so far?
My rookie of the year, I'm going with Cincinnati Bengals running back Giovanni Bernard. Unfortunately, I don't have any of the stats on him with me right now, but the dude, fantasy-wise, I know you love to talk about your fantasy team. Giovanni Bernard is almost always a solid pick. I think this week was the first bad week he really had. But for a Bengals team that's kind of been lost in the rushing game over the last couple of years, Giovanni Bernard has really picked up the slack, a lot better than Benjarvis Green-Ellis.
Here's my pick, and Kyle's going to love it. Geno Smith. I picked Geno Smith, and honestly, people who watch this, anybody who watches this is going to think that I'm just the #1 Geno Smith fan. And
he would have to be the only rookie in the league for me to give him that award.
And get me a jersey or something. But honestly, I'm very impressed with the guy. It's just with the Jets team in general, with those 2 failed projects of Mark Sanchez and Tim Tebow, he's giving them some sense of substance. He's actually seeming like he could be a quarterback for the future for that team that they could possibly build around. I mean, you said you don't have the stats. I'm the stat guy. I'm the person who will look up these kind of things. I mean, he's got over 1,700 yards passed, 8 touchdowns, 11 interceptions. So, yes, that's his tipping point where it gets bad. We talked about his accuracy last week. But he's led the Jets to 4 wins. You could say the defense, we just talked about the Patriots game, did it for them. But Geno Smith's been solid.
Now, I'm very surprised that neither of you said this guy. I think he's really below the radar. I even kind of considered picking him as our defensive player so far, and that's Kiko Alonso out of Buffalo. This guy is ranked 3rd in tackles right now. He was leading in tackles for a while. He's got 70 on the year, and he's tied for most interceptions at 4. This guy on a Buffalo team that, let's be real, they're not going to do anything. He's a really big bright spot on that team. I think he's got a very bright future. Again, I almost picked him for defensive player all around, not even just rookie. Kiko Alonso is really impressing me.
I thought you were going to say Tyrann Mathieu out in Arizona.
He's an honorable mention. I was thinking about him.
He's definitely played well.
Especially after a year off. I'm very impressed with him. But we're going to go to now defensive player of the year, Kyle.
Defensive player. Maybe he hasn't stood out on the stat page, but I'm going with Richard Sherman, cornerback for the Seahawks.
Always a solid pick.
And that's because what I love about Richard Sherman is he talks so much trash, whether it's on Twitter or whether it's after the game or whatever, but he's one of the only guys in the NFL that really comes out every week and backs it up. And I love Richard Sherman for that reason. And so for defensive player, why not? He does a great job every week, and then he gets in your face about it, and I love it.
All right.
Who you got?
It's actually interesting because when we brought up the topic, I thought you just meant straight up a defense had to be picked. So I originally had said Seattle, but if I have to pick an actual player, I was going to go with Alonso. I was going to go with him just because if he wasn't going to get the rookie, I gave it to Smith, it would have been Kiko, just because it's just so impressive to come out there and be that dominant in your rookie year of that kind of a player. Like you said, on a Buffalo Bills team that they're not going to go anywhere, but they have another big rookie, didn't have that great of a season, but E.J. Manuel at quarterback. It's interesting to see somebody come out there and be that dominant, especially on defense, but he's really driven that team.
I considered Alonso again for this, but I'm going to go with Robert Mathis down in Indy. 11.5 sacks so far this season, and I mean, he was one of the guys getting a lot of pressure on Peyton on Sunday night. I mean, they put so much pressure on Peyton Manning. I think that's honestly the main reason I can say they won. There were a lot of different things. I think the only reason Peyton didn't look like himself is because Robert Mathis and that defensive line put pressure on him every single play. Again, almost 12 sacks. We're 7 games into the season. I'm very impressed with Robert Mathis. We're going to go to the head coach now, and I already know who you're going to pick here. So go ahead, your coach.
Andy Reid. Absolutely. In Kansas City, they're off to a 7-0 start. I can't stand the Kansas City Chiefs, but I got to give credit where credit is due. Andy Reid's just done a great job with that team. I don't give anything to Alex Smith in this category. I think he's just kind of filling a role, letting Jamal Charles have the ball. Andy Reid has done a phenomenal job with this team.
Who's your coach?
Ironically enough, we're going to have to agree. As much as I want to argue with you, Kyle.
Just because it's me.
I know. Combative. But I'm going to have to go with Andy Reid because, I mean, it speaks for itself. As much as some people in Philly are going to be bitter that Andy is going, and I've heard people say it's just like, oh, it sucks. Every time somebody leaves Philly, they get success. I mean, look at Shane Victorino. We'll talk about that later. But Andy Reid, I don't think it's necessarily just him. But to be on a team that's 7-0?
7-0.
Now, 7-0 now, the only undefeated team in the league, it's hard to debate.
I'm going to give you a debate on this one. Now,
Okay,
I'm not saying this because I'm a bitter Eagles. I mean, maybe I'm a little bitter, but I'm not picking against Andy Reid for that reason.
Are you going to talk about the schedule?
That's exactly what I'm going to talk about, actually. I'm impressed with the fact they went from 2-14 to 7-0. I will give them that.
Okay.
But here's the thing. Their schedule so far, Jaguars,
Terrible.
not impression. Dallas, who's probably the best
in the
team they've beaten. The Eagles, not impressive. The Giants, not impressive. Tennessee, not bad. And then Oakland, then Houston, who's 2-5. Combined, those teams have a record of 15-33.
The Raiders
I will
suck.
give them the credit in that you went from last place to now. But in the end, I can't go with them. I'm going to go Chuck Pagano at Indy.
Yeah,
That's what I got.
Pagano's
Okay.
done a great job.
Are you riding the wave that they beat?
Seattle and Denver.
Yeah.
They got
And
impressive
San
wins this year.
Francisco in the beginning of the year when they were playing well.
Okay, I could buy that.
And then we'll finish it off with MVP. We can all
I
just
think-
say this
are we
one
all
together.
just saying Peyton Manning?
It's Peyton Manning.
Okay, it's
There's
Peyton
no doubt in
Manning.
any of our minds. Peyton Manning MVP. And we're going to go to hockey real quick now. Ian LaPierre, or Maxime LaPierre, my bad. Maxime LaPierre got a 5-game suspension for checking Dan Boyle into the boards. Him unconscious. He got taken off on a stretcher. Derek, we'll start with you. Was LaPierre's 5-game suspension fair?
I'm going to say yes. I think it's unfortunate with the circumstances because I watched the video, I saw the tape and everything, and I think it's unfortunate because what would normally be a routine boarding became life-threatening because the guy slipped. He slipped on the side on the yellow bearing that you
boarding
have on
line.
there, and it caused him to fall face first into the blue lining and almost pretty much kill himself probably. He got knocked unconscious. But what could have been a routine hit became that because of some weird circumstances, but still he has to atone for that. You have to live up to doing what you did. You pay for your actions. And honestly, I'm saying he's lucky that it's 5. Just because, I mean, they handed down 10-game suspensions already.
Yeah, a lot of the times a hit like that has that kind of fallback ends up being more than 5 games.
And
So I think it's definitely fair. I think he might have gotten off a little easy, to be honest with you.
I mean, I don't know if I'd say easy. Sorry to interrupt
I got
you
too much to say. Go ahead.
I don't know if I'd say he came off easy. I think it's a pretty fair suspension. I think he did deserve to get suspended for the simple fact that if you watch the video, and Brendan Shanahan pointed this out, he was looking right at the numbers. Like there was nothing but numbers in front of him, and you can't do that when he's on the board. So I think he deserved the suspension. But in the end, it's hockey. He's trying to be physical and help his team out. I don't say any more than 5.
No,
I think it was very much fair.
I don't think it was anything like he was looking to hurt him.
No way.
But at a certain point, you just got to atone for what you've done. And that's where we are.
And plus, I think, honestly, he's had a history of this, though.
No,
that's
that's
why
true.
I have a problem with it. I mean, in 2010, he was suspended 4 games for a very similar hit.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this guy's got a
physical
violent
player.
history.
But when we come back, we're going to take a preview of the NBA season. We will also talk a little baseball with the World Series coming up. So stay tuned here on Face Off.